You ever notice how when you finally stop trying so hard, that's when they come back? It's not magic, it's psychology. Most people chase, beg, overthink, and in the process, lose their peace trying to prove they're worth staying for. But the truth is, the moment you start acting differently, the dynamic shifts. Because confidence, self-respect, and calm silence speak louder than any text you could ever send. This isn't about playing games. It's about emotional control. It's about understanding what makes people value you more when you stop fighting for their attention and start standing in your worth. When you stop chasing validation, everything about your energy changes. You no longer wake up wondering what he's thinking, what he's doing, or if he's going to text you back. You stop scanning his words for hidden meanings or replaying conversations trying to figure out what you could have said differently. That constant need to be reassured, that pull to always fix things or prove yourself, it fades when you realize that your worth doesn't live in someone else's approval. It lives in you. And when a man senses that you've stopped seeking his validation, something inside him shifts. He notices the quiet difference. The absence of your usual effort becomes louder than your presence ever was. He feels the space you once filled, and that space starts to make him think. Because the truth is, when you chase validation, you teach someone how little you think of yourself. You tell them through your actions, your opinion defines me. And when someone feels that kind of power, they stop valuing it. People often appreciate what they earn, not what's endlessly offered. But the moment you detach, when you stop explaining, convincing, or overgiving, you reclaim your position. You're no longer an option waiting to be chosen. You're the standard that must be met. That change in posture, even if it's silent, changes the entire dynamic. When you stop chasing validation, you begin to move differently. You listen more and react less. You stop sending that extra text, stop overcompensating for his silence, stop showing up for someone who doesn't show up for you. And that calm detachment is not indifference. It's self-control. It's knowing that your peace matters more than proving your point. It's realizing that no amount of chasing can make someone see your value if they aren't ready to. You stop trying to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. You stop trying to be chosen by someone who doesn't even know what they want. And in that moment, your energy becomes rare. He starts to feel it, not in what you say, but in what you no longer do. The missed calls, the unreturned texts, the absence of your effort, it all begins to register. Because you're not fighting for attention anymore, you're holding your power in silence. That's when curiosity replaces comfort. He starts to wonder why your energy feels different, why you seem so grounded, why you're not reacting the way you used to. That curiosity grows into reflection, and reflection often leads to return. But the difference now is that you've changed. You no longer seek to be validated. You are simply observed, respected, and remembered for your peace. When you stay calm instead of reactive, you start to take control of the situation without ever raising your voice. You no longer let someone else's words or actions dictate your emotions. When something upsets you, you pause, you breathe. You don't rush to respond, you observe. Because emotional control doesn't mean you don't care. It means you refuse to hand over your peace just to prove a point. And that calmness, that restraint, that silence in moments of chaos, it's what makes people take notice. It's not the loud ones who hold the most power. It's the ones who can stay composed when everyone else loses theirs. When you don't react, you show strength. When you don't argue, you show clarity. When you don't chase for understanding, you show self-respect. A calm woman creates mystery, and mystery creates attraction. When he can no longer predict your reactions, when he can't trigger the same emotional responses he used to, he starts to pay attention in a different way. Because for so long, he may have been used to your energy being tied to his behavior. If he pulled away, you reached out. If he got cold, you got anxious. If he pushed, you tried to pull him back. But when you break that pattern and stay centered, it confuses the dynamic. Your silence becomes louder than any argument could be. He starts to wonder if he's losing his hold, and in that uncertainty, curiosity grows. That's how power shifts, not through shouting or proving, but through calm energy that says, I'm not going to lose myself trying to make you see my worth. Staying calm changes the way you communicate. You don't talk to be heard anymore. You talk to be understood. And when understanding isn't possible, you don't force it. You simply step back. You stop defending yourself against accusations meant to provoke you. You stop over-explaining your intentions to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to make someone feel what you feel. Instead, you redirect your focus inward. You keep your tone soft, your pace steady, and your words few. Because calmness isn't weakness, it's emotional maturity. It's recognizing that peace is more valuable than proving you're right. And the truth is, calmness is rare in a world built on reaction. Most people speak before thinking, text before breathing, argue before listening. But when you learn to hold that stillness inside you, it separates you from the noise. You don't need to win every battle. Sometimes silence wins for you. You start to realize that not everything deserves your reaction. Not every situation deserves your energy. You start choosing when and where to show up emotionally. That discipline makes you powerful, because while others are losing control trying to get a reaction out of you, you're sitting in complete command of yourself. He feels that grounded presence even in your quiet moments. And that calmness becomes unforgettable because it represents something he didn't expect, someone who isn't ruled by emotion, but guided by strength. When you set standards instead of ultimatums, you shift from demanding respect to embodying it. You no longer need to say, if you don't do this, I'm leaving. Your actions start to communicate that message for you. Standards are quiet. They don't scream for attention. They simply exist. They're boundaries rooted in self-worth. When you set a standard, you're not trying to control anyone. You're choosing how you want to be treated and what you're no longer willing to accept. It's not about punishing someone. It's about protecting your peace. And when a man realizes that your boundaries aren't threats, but reflections of your value, that's when he starts to see you differently. Because most people are used to emotional reactions, not calm certainty. Ultimatums come from fear, the fear of losing someone, the fear of not being heard, the fear of being left behind. Standards come from strength, the quiet knowing that you deserve respect, care, and effort. When you start operating from that place, your energy becomes grounded. You stop begging for time or attention. You stop explaining why you need consistency. You stop overinvesting in someone who gives you the bare minimum. You no longer make excuses for someone's lack of effort. Instead, you simply distance yourself from behavior that doesn't align with your worth. And that distance speaks volumes. It tells him, I'm not here to teach you how to treat me. I'm here to see if you already know how. Setting standards is not about being cold or difficult. It's about being clear. It's the difference between saying, I need you to text me more, and simply not entertaining inconsistency. It's the difference between saying, you better respect me, and quietly walking away when disrespect shows up. When you start living by your standards, you stop negotiating your value. You no longer lower your expectations just to make someone comfortable. You no longer chase after potential. You start responding to consistency. You stop giving multiple chances to behavior that already showed you who they are. And the more you honor your own standards, the more people around you either rise to meet them or fade away. Men notice when you have standards. They notice when you no longer react to breadcrumbs. They notice when you stop waiting around hoping they'll change. Because standards create contrast. They show him what life feels like when you're around and what it feels like when you're gone. And when your presence is calm but firm, loving but selective, kind but not naive, it leaves an impression that stays long after you walk away. It's not about making anyone chase you. It's about showing that you're not afraid to lose what isn't meant for you. You stop rewarding inconsistency with access. You stop proving your loyalty to someone who's not proving theirs. You stop playing small to fit someone else's comfort zone. And that's when everything changes. When you start standing on what you believe you deserve instead of waiting for someone else to see it first. When you focus on your life instead of his moves, you take your power back piece by piece. You stop revolving around what he's doing, who he's with, or what he's thinking. You stop checking your phone waiting for a message that may or may not come. You stop replaying every interaction trying to figure out what it meant. Instead, you begin to pour that same energy into yourself. You start remembering what you loved before the relationship, what made you happy outside of his attention. You start reconnecting with your friends, your passions, your peace. And that shift doesn't just change how you feel, It changes how you're seen, because when your world stops orbiting around someone else, it becomes brighter on its own. It starts to draw people in without you even trying. When you redirect your focus, you start realizing how much of yourself you gave away while trying to keep someone else close. All those little compromises, all the waiting, all the worrying, it drained you more than you realized. But when you stop doing that, when you start focusing on your own path, your confidence rebuilds itself quietly. You stop looking for signs of love in someone else's behavior and start creating them in your own routine. You eat better, think clearer, sleep deeper. You start to glow differently because peace looks good on you. And that glow doesn't go unnoticed. It's the kind of light that catches attention, not because you're chasing it, but because you've stopped needing it. Men are naturally drawn to women who move with purpose. When he sees you no longer centering your life around his attention, something changes in him. He begins to feel the distance that your focus creates. Not because you're trying to make him jealous, but because your energy isn't reaching for him anymore. You've redirected it toward building yourself. And when that happens, he starts to wonder what has your attention now. He starts to notice the quiet confidence in how you speak, the peace in your tone, the ease in your silence. That mystery, that emotional independence creates gravity. It's not loud, it's not performative, it's powerful. When you focus on your life, you stop keeping score. You stop analyzing every small detail. You stop needing reassurance that you matter because your actions start proving it to yourself. You begin to take pride in your growth, not your attachment. You find comfort in your solitude, not anxiety in your silence. And that's when your presence becomes valuable again, because it's no longer based on need but choice. You're not trying to fill a void anymore. You're living in fullness. You begin to set goals, chase your ambitions, and build your peace without waiting for someone to validate it. And that independence doesn't just change how you move, it changes how others move around you. He starts realizing that the version of you who used to wait, text, and worry is gone. In her place stands someone fulfilled, grounded, and unavailable to anything that disturbs her growth. When you communicate with clarity instead of chaos, everything about your presence becomes calmer and more commanding. You stop talking to convince and start speaking to express. You no longer use words to beg someone to understand you. You use them to state what you feel and what you need with peace. That kind of communication carries weight because it's not desperate, it's composed. It's the difference between reacting in emotion and responding with understanding. When you talk with clarity, you don't raise your tone to be heard, you slow down to be understood. You stop letting emotions drive the conversation and start letting self-respect guide it. And when a man experiences that, he feels the shift immediately. The tone, the stillness, the way you hold eye contact, it says everything without needing to fight for attention. Most people are used to chaos in communication, arguments that go in circles, words spoken to win instead of connect, tension that builds until it explodes. But when you learn to stay grounded during those moments, when you stop matching someone's anger and instead hold your center, you stand out, you start showing that emotional maturity isn't about silence, it's about direction. You don't throw words to hurt, you use them to clarify. You don't talk to make someone feel small, you talk to make yourself clear. And that difference makes all the impact, because clarity removes confusion, and confusion is where most relationships fall apart. When you communicate with peace, you remove the noise that used to cloud everything between you. Clarity in communication is also about knowing when not to speak. It's about recognizing that not every reaction deserves a response. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You stop over-talking in hopes that your point will finally land. You stop debating emotions with someone who's determined to win instead of understand. You start valuing silence more than chaos, because silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It gives space for truth to rise and for your energy to remain intact. You no longer send long messages filled with pain and confusion. You say less, mean more, and let your composure do the rest. That restraint, that discipline, it commands attention without effort. When you speak clearly, your boundaries sound softer but stronger. You can say, "This doesn't work for me," without raising your voice. You can say, "I need space," without guilt. You can express disappointment without turning it into blame. That level of control shows you've outgrown the emotional tug of war that wants to find your connection. It reminds him that your peace matters more than your need to be right. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about channeling it wisely. You start to recognize that the goal isn't to win arguments, it's to maintain inner calm. Because when communication turns into a fight for dominance, everyone loses. But when you speak from a place of steadiness, you create safety. You make it easy for someone to listen because your tone carries peace, not pressure. And when you consistently communicate like that, you become unforgettable. Because peace in a world full of reaction is rare. Most people chase being heard, you embody being understood. Your words carry a calm that lingers even after the conversation ends, they echo. Not because they were loud, but because they were grounded. And that kind of energy doesn't just attract people, it makes them respect you even in silence. When you walk away, when respect walks out, you show a level of strength that very few people ever master. You stop trying to make broken things look whole. You stop giving chances to someone who's already shown you their pattern. You stop confusing love with endurance. Because love without respect drains you, piece by piece, until you can't even recognize yourself in the mirror. Walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you started caring about yourself, too. It's not an act of pride. It's an act of preservation. It's knowing that no amount of love can thrive in a space where you're constantly explaining why you deserve basic decency. When you decide to leave, not in anger but in peace, that silence becomes louder than any argument you could ever have. There's a moment in every relationship where you feel that shift, where the tone changes, where the energy feels different, where what used to feel safe now feels heavy. And deep down, you know it. You sense when someone's respect for you starts to fade, even if their words still sound the same. They stop listening the way they used to. They stop valuing your time, your effort, your presence. And you try to fix it, you try to talk it through, you try to prove that you're worth staying for. But eventually, you realize that staying only teaches them they can treat you this way and still keep you. That realization is where your power begins. Because when you finally walk away, you send a message that words never could. You show them that your peace costs more than their inconsistency. Leaving with dignity isn't easy. It takes self-control not to argue you're worth one last time. It takes maturity not to try to make them understand the pain they caused. It takes emotional discipline to step away while you still have love in your heart but refuse to lose yourself for it. But that's exactly what separates people who settle from people who grow. The ones who stay waiting for respect often end up losing their confidence. The ones who leave find it again. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you refuse to accept less than what you know you deserve. And that's the kind of decision that shifts the balance. Because while you may be silent on the outside, your absence starts echoing everywhere they once took you for granted. Men remember the woman who had the courage to walk away with grace. They remember the quiet strength in how she left, not with bitterness, not with a scene, but with peace. That kind of exit lingers. Because it's not about trying to make them regret losing you. It's about showing that you respect yourself too much to stay where respect no longer lives. You stop arguing over how you should be treated. You stop begging for effort. You stop hoping that maybe this time will be different. Instead, you let your silence become your boundary. And in that silence, he begins to feel what your words could never make him understand. He begins to see that your love wasn't weak. It was patient. It was loyal. It was steady. But it had limits. And when those limits were crossed, you didn't scream. You simply chose peace over chaos. Because walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of your self-respect reclaiming its rightful place. In the end, it's never really about making a man come back. It's about becoming the version of yourself that no longer needs him to. When you stop chasing validation, when you stay calm instead of reactive, when you set standards rooted in peace, and when you start focusing on your own life, everything about your energy changes. You stop communicating to prove your worth and start moving in quiet confidence. You stop begging for respect and start expecting it through your actions. That's what draws people back. Not manipulation, not games, but genuine self-respect. Because people are drawn to peace, they are drawn to strength. They are drawn to the kind of calm that comes from knowing you can stand alone and still be whole. When you stop centering your world around someone else, they feel the shift. They start to see the difference between who you were and who you've become. They begin to remember the comfort of your presence, the steadiness of your energy, the safety of your silence. And that's when they come back, not because you chased, but because you grew. But here's the truth most people miss when they finally return. You're not the same person anymore. The version of you they left behind doesn't exist. You've evolved. You've learned what peace feels like, and you're not willing to trade it for inconsistency ever again. So even if they do come back, you no longer wait for their validation. You no longer bend to be chosen. You realize that the power was never in them staying. It was in you knowing when to stop trying. That's the beauty of growth. It's when your silence says more than your effort ever did. When your calm commands more respect than your arguments ever could. When your standards attract what's real and filter out what's temporary. Men may return to you, but you, when you've found your worth, will only stay where peace and respect live. Because once you've experienced what it feels like to honor yourself, no attention in the world feels as good as self-respect.